Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Product Officer Mike Palmer.
All right. Thank you very much. I hope you had fun with our intro. We like to have a little fun. Hopefully you'll see some of that through the course of the presentation as well. I mean, it's backup after all. I do love these conferences. Veritas has the best engineering and product team in all of enterprise. And it's this conference that allows us to tell you the things that we've been working on, not just the updates to the best products in the industry, ones that you've installed and we've helped you manage over the course of the last 30 years, but we get to tell you about what we've been working over the past year to help you move into the future. It is also a great time to allow me to thank you, our customers, our partners, the press that covers us, the analysts that help guide the decisions that we make, because you've also helped us come this far over the last 30 years, and you're going to be even more important for us as we move forward into the next 10. Now, as we saw from our intro, we have a lot of work to do. The future holds a lot of promise with data, as both Lynn and Bill described for us. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, analytics in general, the leading companies in the world are already investing heavily in these spaces to move their businesses forward. But we have an obligation to avoid many of the pitfalls that some have told us about as we enable some of this automation. Data can be a force for good. In fact, it's your most valuable asset. And I know this is going to sound weird, but that starts with backup. And of course, we would say this as the leading backup provider in the industry over the course of the last 30 years. But we've seen examples to lead us to this conclusion. Companies like Airbnb, Lyft, and Uber created the sharing economy. What they recognized was the underutilized assets that you all owned, your houses that you weren't in, at least every room, the cars that you weren't driving during the day, were capital assets that you owned but weren't productive from an economic point of view. And we look at that lesson in your backup environment, where we collectively have created the largest data estate in most of enterprise. That data estate is the key to unlocking value in machine learning and in analytics. That backup estate, that secondary data, is the history of your company, your customers, and your applications, aggregated in a single location, ready to be taken advantage of. Which leads me to the theme of this presentation, which is that secondary data is your organization's most underutilized asset. And secondly, that managing that data under a single platform is your most critical enabler. So let's talk about how Veritas can help you use that data not just to go back, but to go forward. Last year, as Bill highlighted, we announced the gold standard in data management as 360-degree data management. It was the best approach and remains the best approach to harness the power of your information. What that means for you and for us is that you as the customer choose the right technique for the right workload. It means being able to move your applications from any location to any target without losing sight of the data or control of the performance. It means being able to move data within your premise locations, across your DR locations. It means being able to move to the cloud seamlessly and to the choice of your cloud. It means tools to enable business continuity. But it means so much more. It means storage optimization, freeing your data from locked-in hardware solutions. It means making storage intelligent, turning storage into usage. It means data visibility. As Bill talked about, your data isn't just sitting inside NetBackup, and it's not just sitting inside your favorite cloud provider. It's sitting in myriad locations, in SaaS, in collaboration tools. in your legacy database systems. It means understanding your data where it resides, its attributes, and therefore how to manage it better. And that means compliance. Compliance driven by the confidence of taking your data, using it to its maximum potential, knowing that you're treating it within the regulatory confines that govern it. But let's drill down a little further into data protection, where we are an industry leader and will continue to be an industry leader in years to come. Now first, we have been in the Magic Quadrant for Gartner for data protection since its inception. We will continue to be there into the future, as you will see with the product announcements we're going to make today. But things have changed during that course of time. Backup used to be a consolidated platform when companies were building large client-server environments and stuck everything in the four-wall confines of their data center. Obviously, architecture changed. We saw workloads arise. The rise of the virtual machine created competitors for Veritas. We saw changes in the way that arrays were protected, creating new techniques in snapshot management, and so on and so on. And as these workloads diversified, obviously solutions and suppliers diversified as well. And while specialization became the goal, especially as different users enabled these different workloads, what really resulted was fragmentation. Many enterprises have up to 5 or more different data protection solutions. And that creates a lot of challenges, not opportunities. It creates challenges in management, it creates challenges and risks in compliance. It makes opportunities go away and surrounds you with the white walkers who are not here to help you. It creates non-compliance for those of you that are seeking to manage personally identifiable information and understand where it resides in your environment. And it prevents you from taking advantage of your most prized asset, which is your secondary data. So while there is value to be gained, there is also complexity. And when that happens, technology has taught us that platforms are built. Bill referenced his history at Sun. When we saw a proliferation of hardware and operating systems, we eventually saw the rise of application platforms. When those systems became difficult to manage, we saw the rise of hypervisors. When those systems became difficult to manage, we saw the rise of the cloud. With the progression of time and the increase in complexity and choice, platforms have risen to the occasion to allow you, the customer, to better manage that complexity and gain value higher up in the stack. Let's talk about a practical example. We all carry a phone today, your favorite phone provider. We used to carry one of these bad boys. You remember they were 10 pounds? You remember the holster you had to carry them in? Strap that thing to your belt. All that thing could do was make phone calls. It couldn't text. It couldn't do email. It couldn't find a great restaurant nearby you. It couldn't help you get a date while you were sitting at the bar. Matter of fact, it would prevent you from getting a date sitting at the bar. But fast forward to where we are today. Your phone looks more like this, or at least if you can get a hold of one of them. And this phone does everything for you. And more important to understand than what it does for you today is that this phone is really just a device to deliver more value to you every day. You have the confidence that when you pick up your phone, there's going to be a new application or a new update that's going to increase the capabilities available to you through it. This is the power of a platform. You don't need 20 different devices to manage the options and the choices that you want to make in your personal life, in this case, or in your enterprise. It's time to rethink that strategy. So let's bring it back to data protection. Here are the things that we believe, frankly, we know that data protection must do for you today. It must support both old and new workloads. It must provide support for virtual, physical, and cloud data in the right way for each type of data. It must provide you with copy data management capabilities to help you manage cost and risk, but also to speed up your development process. It must leverage snapshot technologies provided by your cloud providers or your array providers. It must support the next generation of containerized applications, which are the fastest growing ones in the market today. And it must connect to clouds. And it must do that with the fastest deduplication rates to allow you to take advantage of the infrastructure, and in particular the network infrastructure available to you. It must provide you with business continuity. Data has to be there when the application must come up again. It has to automatically detect and protect NoSQL workloads because, again, as data becomes more valuable, it are these types of infrastructures that allow you to gain insights from that data. Now, of course, from an infrastructure point of view, it has to scale up and scale out. Nobody wants to pre-buy capacity anymore. It has to ensure zero downtime for backup and recovery because the expectations in cloud are the same as the expectations were on-premise, and that is that your applications will be available at all times. It has to do this with high levels of performance. It has to do this in a very cost-effective way. And with Veritas, you get all of this. Now, without Veritas, not so much. In fact, when we were trying to put this slide together, we had to create a new symbol. And our little guy here with the big nose is trying to tell you that we weren't quite sure what to put in some of these categories because these providers kind of do things. They'll tell you they back stuff up, but they kind of back stuff up. They back some things up, but not other things up so well. So we'll talk about the truth of information. That's the truth about data protection. So with that said, you don't need to have 5 different solutions in your enterprise environment. You need one platform. And so today we're announcing the general availability of NetBackup 8.1. It includes Cloud Catalyst, which has 3 times the performance and deduplication rates to cloud of our closest competitors. It comes with 20 certified cloud connectors. Support for hyperconverged solutions like Nutanix, who you will see here at the conference today. It provides some more support for emerging workloads like NoSQL scale-out architectures through our parallel streaming capability. It provides you with global visibility in data to reduce your storage costs. It provides multi-cloud migration with a single-click disaster recovery with serial orchestration from legacy workloads to virtualized ones. And it provides policy-driven storage management through software. Now, at the same time, we're proud to announce the latest update to our industry-leading protection appliance family, the 5340 appliance. It is the industry-leading appliance, having taken share 5 straight quarters in a row. And why does it do that? Well, on this next incarnation, it will provide 61% better throughput and performance than its nearest competitor in the data domain series. It provides over 1 petabyte more capacity, so you do not have to continue to buy additional storage after buying an initial purchase with us. It provides management simplicity, the ability to support a whole farm of appliances through a single interface. And ultimately, configured for high availability so there's never downtime in your backup environment and the need to reestablish Windows once the night's passed. These things are important. In these times, we think about situations when disasters actually have struck. And one of the things I'd mentioned earlier was the importance of certified connectors. There are a lot of our competitors that will talk about cloud connectors. We'll talk about certified connectors. Why? Because you as enterprises need the confidence that when you need support, that you can get it. And you're not finding the gaps in coverage between Veritas and your cloud supplier. Our competitors cannot claim the same. So I draw your attention to the situation, the true humanitarian situation facing many folks in the US today in places like Texas and Florida. And it was mentioned earlier, Veritas is proud to participate in the recovery effort, double matching donations from our employees who know that they are part of a larger community in this world. I agree. In our industry, one of the things that we think about is the importance of the coverage that these people will rely on. And there is a real story, not this particular hurricane season, a former one, where an insurance company didn't pay out to its customers because the 74 mile per hour Category 1 wind requirement wasn't achieved. where winds topped out at 72 miles per hour. So I don't know about you, but I think roofs were coming off houses, damage was done, and those customers realized then that they had missed something in the fine print. In our world, we don't want you to miss something in the fine print as you move into the multi-cloud world. You expect your policy to pay out for you. And data protection is very much an insurance policy. Against infrastructure outages, against application failure, against the accidental deletion of your data or service interruption, file loss, generally lost productivity, data corruption and replication and more. But there is confusion in the market. 51% of IT delivery managers believe that data protection in the cloud is self-sustaining. In other words, they don't need a solution for data protection. It's the magic of the cloud. But I will tell you that our cloud partners sponsoring this event would not disagree with us that data is your most important asset. They would also not disagree with us that clouds were not built to protect data natively in all forms for all recovery methods. So while the cloud is secure, and while the cloud replicates data, it's not a substitute for data protection. So here's an example of one major cloud provider's customer agreement. As I mentioned, this is the fine print that matters as you and your enterprises start to adopt the cloud. Don't assume the cloud solves everything. This makes very clear that your responsibility is to protect your data independent of the virtual services you're buying in infrastructure as a service. Now, applying streaming backup technologies to protect cloud workloads may not always be the right move, and we are the first ones to acknowledge that. There are many techniques to do this. Managing snapshots across different cloud providers and arrays has become a very popular method to recover certain types of data under certain circumstances. But all that also needs to be orchestrated. So to provide enterprise-grade snapshot management, you have to be able to do the indexing. You have to be able to do the replication to different arrays. You have to be able to provide that standalone capability independent of the cloud brand or independent of the array provider, but integrated in your overall protection. So today we're also announcing the general availability of Veritas Cloud Point. It allows you to do multi-snapshot management, indexing, orchestration through a software-only solution. And it also heralds a new approach that Veritas is taking with our customers as we seek to be frictionless in our interactions with you, our customers, and our partners. You can go to veritas.com today, download CloudPoint free of charge in its basic form. Start using it. We will then enable you with further support tiers and feature upgrades, of course, as time goes on. But we want to put these capabilities into your hands in as frictionless a way as we possibly can. But this is vision, not just what we're doing today, but also what we're doing tomorrow. We understand that as we build the next versions of our products, like NetBackup, or our new releases of products like CloudPoint, that we have to think harder about our user experience and the interfaces that we provide you, our customers. I mean, our children and grandchildren, not my grandchildren, who run circles around us technology-wise with their iPhones and their iPads, they expect a very high level of simplicity. They expect one-click deployments. Their time to value is 0, which is what I've understood is called the skills gap. They don't want to have skills. They want to just have stuff that works. And we're seeing this in the competitive industry as well. We need to make our products at Veritas simpler to use, because it takes a village of you to protect your environments. You, the backup admins, have been our loyal customers for many years. But our customers are also diversifying to cloud admins, to developers, to virtual admins. You all have different jobs. So we've worked to create the right APIs, the gateways, and the service-based architectures to allow you to enable adoption of our products under the covers, integrating NetBackup through an API gateway, for example, into your data center orchestration systems. But we also need your help to get it right on the front end. And we've understood that Veritas has a solid engineering heritage, but hasn't always been delivering when it comes to UI. So I'm happy to announce that we will shortly be kicking off the new program for user experience engagement, PUKES, to get your input on our user interface. No, it was the Net Backup User Interface Simplification and Unicate, the NBU UI Sucks program. We heard you. We can joke about ourselves as well. All right. We are actually announcing the Veritas Design Program. The Veritas Design Program will be a part of our customer engagement program, where we have daily interactions with thousands of our customers who provide us with ongoing input to our products, our interfaces, and the features that they know and want. We'll be announcing this program and how to engage with it over the coming weeks, and we very much look forward to your participation. But having said that, what we take the most seriously is the fact that the features need to be there. We don't want our customers to get entranced by a slick UI that, once delivered, does not enable them to protect the ever-expanding data center that they're trying to support. It has to evolve to become more. It has to evolve to become self-optimizing. It has to evolve to become self-analyzing and self-configuring, remediating and self-healing, and ultimately self-servicing, because, as we said at the beginning, analytics and machine learning are the promise of the future. We want you to be able to integrate and leverage the data coming from your secondary environment to gain value from our tools and better operability from our tool. So we're going to give you a little demo on this. I'm going to welcome Dr. David Lin to the stage to give us a little demonstration on how machine learning is changing Veritas. David? Welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, so I'm going to give David a little introduction here. I'm going to stand on this side. So David has 25 years of experience in machine learning. That's kind of machine learning before there was machine learning. Following his electrical engineering PhD from UCLA. He's been the director of network design and performance analysis at Quest, which we would all know as a tier 1 telecoms provider. His job there was to provide operational data and use machine learning to improve system reliability and performance and operationalize performance efficiencies at that telecom. You know, and I was thinking of you today, David, because someone reminded me of a great story I thought I would tell you about. You know, there was a very famous set of bank robbers, Bonnie and Clyde, and when they were asked why they robbed banks, they have a very famous response, which was, "We rob banks because it's where the money is." So you're a machine learning guy. Why did you come to Veritas?
Okay, that's a very good question. So I joined Veritas because I can develop machine learning software for our customers.
Now you know why he's our machine learning guy. All right. David, walk us through your demo. Let's see it.
Okay, I also want to say that the machine learning software can unleash the power of data that Veritas has been protecting for many years. So with that, let me start my presentation. So let's look at the diagram. What you're seeing here is our new user interface for our net backup products. What you are seeing on the right-hand side of the screen is a screen showing that alerts for SLA violation, indicating the success rate of backup job is below service level agreement. So let's look at this chart to see what that means, how we use machine learning. If you look at the blue line, that's the actual data we collected from the historical data from our net backup logs. In the background, we also collect other measurements, such as CPU utilization, disk IOs, error logs. With those data, we can train machine learning models. After we have trained model, we can predict the future. That's how machine learning works. And our machine learning software can also list root cause analysis. It lists the potential problems that may cause system to fail. So system operator have a chance to fix the issues before the actual failure take place. If the admins are too busy, we can click the green button, take to the next screen. Next screen, if you enable the intelligence scheduler function, then we can automatically schedule the policies. So what you can see on the screen is that those policies being selected for automatic scheduling. Next, I'm going to show you the benefit of that function. What you're seeing on the screen is before this automatic scheduling, you see some hotspots on the screen indicating some system resources are overutilized. This is a leading cause for the backup job to fail. Without automation software, we can spread the job to make the system resource more evenly used. So you can see that will lead to the increase of the backup success rate as shown in the green line. So going a few weeks forward, you can see when you go back to the dashboard of the UI, you can see the backup job success rate increased quite a lot.
So what we're showing here, obviously, is the fact that we're not just taking that backup performance, but we're taking environmental variables, and we're incorporating those into the product to, in this particular case, improve backup success rates. When are we targeting having this sort of capability in a product that these customers can buy?
So we think early next year, we can have something for people to try out.
Great. So this is the promise of the future for us. Thank you, Mr. Lin.
Thank you.
That's what it's really like at Veritas, not people like me. Now, protecting data is a foundational part of 360 management. Platforms that protect data both on-premise, in legacy workloads and new workloads, and we're going to continue to enable our customers to leverage these capabilities, ones that are in 8.1, ones that are in CloudPoint, and future products as we release them to the market. Continuing to integrate these with critical services, in particular in the cloud, is super important, and we're going to hope that you're going to go watch the super session that's going to be delivered by Jyothi Swarup and Rama Kalappan after this session today. But we'd like to pivot here for a second because we have an outstanding partnership with one of the, if not the leading cloud service provider in the market. We've been close providers and customers and partners with Microsoft over 25 years. Our relationship started when Backup Exec was integrated into the NT operating system as the default protection method. And fast forward to today, we're yet again innovating around protecting you, our customers, and your data in the next generation operating system in the cloud. We announced earlier today in a press release that Microsoft was the first company to adopt the full 360 data management platform in Azure. And to discuss this partnership a little bit more in depth, I'd love to invite to the stage Mark Russinovich, the CTO from Microsoft Azure.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here at Veritas Vision. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Azure, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what differentiates Azure and then how that fits in with the relationship, the partnership that we've got going with Veritas that we're announcing today. How many of you use Azure? Raise your hands. Okay, that's a disappointingly low number of hands. I think after today, though, I'm optimistic that you all become Azure users. Now, Azure, people always ask me how it differentiates from the other cloud providers. And we've got strengths in 4 different dimensions that I'll talk about briefly this morning. We're hybrid, we're productive, we're intelligent, and we're trusted. But first, I'll talk a little bit about our momentum and our scale, because one of the key concerns for enterprises and requirements is that your data be located around the world, wherever your companies are, wherever your customers are. And this is one of our objectives, is to reach into all these places where you're doing business. We've expanded now to 42 announced regions across the world, which is more than double of the next largest cloud provider in terms of regional coverage around the world. That's just a little bit of the momentum we've got. We've announced, you can see just a few in the last couple months. This slide is continuously being updated as we continue our aggressive global expansion. We've also had a fantastic growth in terms of customers, and some of the ones that raised your hands here in the room are likely part of this. Turns out that over 90% of the Fortune 500 now are using the Microsoft Cloud, which consists of Azure plus Microsoft SaaS applications like Office 365 and Dynamics 365. We've been doubling year over year both our revenue and our compute usage. as represented in that slide. 97% is what we announced at the last quarter. So fantastic growth as enterprises start to rush towards the cloud. Now let me talk a little bit about those differentiations and our strengths in these different areas. How many of you expect to be hybrid for the next few years at least? I expect everybody's hands to go up because really every enterprise of any size is likely going to be hybrid. It's only those companies that are being born now that are going to be cloud only. One of the concerns that customers have is, can I have my workloads move from my on-premises environment to the Azure cloud or even to other clouds? We make an effort to meet our customers where they're at with whatever technologies they're using, and a key part of that is open source technologies. Microsoft has become a deeply open source company, and that means we develop open source technologies, contribute open source technologies, build on open source, partner with open source companies, and you can see some of the companies and technologies that we've partnered with across all different levels of the stack to make sure that they've got their customers, the people that use these technologies, have a great experience on Azure. A statistic just to drive home just how open source focused we've gotten: more than 50% of the virtual machines being deployed right this minute in Azure are Linux virtual machines. Now, another part of hybrid is, of course, operating across cloud to on-premises. And we focus all of our technology areas on enabling that. You can see some examples here, like a common identity system with Azure Active Directory, where you can federate your on-premises identities up into the cloud for single sign-on. You can see that we focus on integrated management offerings like Microsoft Operations Management Suite, which lets you manage your virtual machines in Azure, in other clouds, and even on-premises. Our data technologies also allow you to move data from on-premises to the cloud, or to archive data to the cloud, or even to stretch things like a SQL database from on-premises to the cloud and use the virtually infinite cloud storage as the back end for a database. Now, this brings us to the partnership with Veritas, because it's about hybrid storage. And this partnership we've entered with Veritas is a very special one. We see that Veritas has that same understanding of enterprise customers as we do. Their customers are our customers, you're our customers, trying to figure out how to get to the cloud efficiently, how to take advantage of cloud-first technologies, and using the existing tools, using the existing platforms as much as possible to make that transition as easy as possible. And as part of this partnership, we focus on 3 dimensions. One of them is that our engineering teams have worked closely with Veritas to help them build their solutions most effectively on top of Azure. We also have go-to-market plans together, so joint marketing campaigns will be launched with Veritas to sell their solutions. And our field, finally, is incentivized to sell Veritas solutions, so we will be evangelizing Veritas solutions on Azure with Veritas customers and even non-Veritas customers. So this partnership, like I said, is very special, and we don't enter these kinds of things lightly. Now let me continue with a little bit of hybrid. Another aspect of our hybrid strength is something called Azure Stack. Many companies will want to have cloud on-premises for some time. And an ideal world, the on-premises cloud looks like the public cloud, because that enables you to take advantage of the public cloud ecosystem. And that ecosystem consists of expertise, developer expertise. It consists of operator expertise. It also consists of partners, ISVs, and the technologies they deliver to the public cloud that now, with this technology, you can deploy to the on-premises environment. Because Azure Stack is essentially a very small footprint Azure that starts at 4 servers, but gives you high degree of consistency across the Azure API surface area for both infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. Now let me talk a little bit about productivity. And one of the key focuses of Microsoft has always been developer productivity. Our strengths with Visual Studio, and we extend that into CI/CD with Visual Studio Team Services, a full CI/CD pipeline with Microsoft technologies that allow you to also plug in open source technologies at any point in that CI/CD pipeline. But we also focus on application platforms and making it easy for developers to deploy and operate applications without having to worry about the infrastructure. The world is, of course, moving towards containers and microservices. We've got our own microservices platform called Service Fabric that works on both Linux and Windows, that much of Azure and much of Microsoft itself is built on top of. And we made the exact bits that we operate our services on available to our customers so you can run Service Fabric applications on our cloud or your own private clouds or even other clouds. And this is available as a service, of course, on Azure, where you can simply click a few buttons in a portal and have a Service Fabric cluster stood up and be automatically managed for you, and so you can immediately start deploying applications without having to worry about the infrastructure. There's open source container technologies that our customers use, and we've enabled those as a service as well as something we call Azure Container Service. Kubernetes has become very popular. We've got Kubernetes as a service, Mesos DCOS as a service, and Docker Swarm as a service as well. So any customers that are using those can have also the agility and productivity of not having to worry about the infrastructure. The world is also moving higher up the stack into PaaS services, and we've got world-class PaaS technologies, including Azure App Service for websites that might be customer-facing websites, internal line of business websites that typically have a SQL database behind them. And the current trend, even extending past microservices, is something called serverless, where developers don't have to worry about scaling. They pay for only what the resources that their code consumes as it consumes it, and it's largely event-driven. And we've got technologies that are cutting edge in that space as well with something called Azure Functions, and then Logic Apps, which is workflow, serverless workflow, that allows you to orchestrate integrated workflows across SaaS and PaaS applications as well as Azure Functions. Let me talk a little bit about intelligence, because one of the ways that we describe Microsoft's overarching vision and mission is intelligent cloud, intelligent edge. So I'll talk a little bit about what intelligent cloud means for us. And as Mike has said, it's all about the data and extracting intelligence from it. And so we want to be the best platform for extracting intelligence out of data. And there's a number of ways that we do that. First of all, we've got world-class machine learning hardware in the form of GPUs. We're also working on FPGAs for inference, for real-time inference for machine learning. We've got our own framework, CNTK, the cognitive toolkit, but we also work with third-party frameworks like TensorFlow. We've got advanced machine learning algorithms that we make available in our marketplace for customers to use. We have off-the-shelf machine learning algorithms that I'll talk about in a second called cognitive services to make it very easy for a developer to infuse their own applications with intelligence. And we have a bot framework because so much now of interacting with customers should be driven with intelligent conversation and be automated as much as possible so you can reach more customers with deeper engagement. And our bot framework allows you to create customized chat environments specific to your domain. And then our data platform consists of everything from our SQL Server managed service, Azure SQL Database, to Postgres, MySQL, NoSQL services like Cosmos Database, a globally distributed NoSQL database that exposes not only our own APIs, but also open source APIs in the form of MongoDB and the Gremlin Graph API. And you'll see more of this as we bring more open source APIs onto our own platforms. And then Azure IoT. Our mission with IoT, like I said, is intelligent cloud, intelligent edge. Intelligent edge is IoT. And what we're focused on doing is taking and creating a platform that extends consistently from the cloud all the way to edge devices, to small devices where developers can write an application that can work anywhere along the spectrum, from cloud to Azure Stack down to a Raspberry Pi or smaller. Now, cognitive services, that's one of the, I think, really fundamentally disruptive technologies when it comes to companies adopting the cloud, because it's so easy to consume now and infuse, like I said, your applications with intelligence. Our cognitive services extend across these domains that you see: vision, speech, language, knowledge, search, and we also have a labs area for experimental APIs for you to take a look at what might be coming. Now, these, of course, are all the standard kinds of APIs you'd expect out of a cognitive service. The Vision API lets you submit images or videos for automatic object recognition or sentiment analysis or age detection or gender. But all of these are customizable for your domain. So if you've got images that are specific to your environment, to your company, you can train very quickly and easily our cognitive services to understand your own vocabulary, whether it's vision or text or speech. And then finally, we pride ourselves on being the most trusted cloud. And this comes from our history, deep history, working with the enterprise, understanding enterprise requirements, understanding enterprise management requirements, and governance requirements. And there's a few different ways that we earn customers' trust, and we try to make Azure a trustworthy platform. One of them is by enabling businesses to bring their regulated workloads onto our cloud. We're the world leader when it comes to the number of certifications that we've achieved for our services, both in number as well as the depth across the core services that we've achieved. And you can see the certifications that we've got. There are close to 70 of them that we've achieved so far, global, US government, industry, and regional standards, to allow any business that's regulated to move their data into our cloud and process it in our cloud. And then I think this is one of the transformations that the cloud enables, is an API-driven cybersecurity platform. In an on-premises environment that's very heterogeneous and largely driven by scripts and custom configuration, it's very difficult to understand the way applications are behaving, to understand what's anomalous, to understand what should be talking to what. But when you have a cloud environment that's completely API-driven, you can use those same APIs to get deep insights into what's going on with the applications and the data that you've got running in the cloud. And we've got a first-party service called Azure Security Center that gives you rich insights into your cloud applications on Azure that will show you the security posture of your virtual machines, your databases, your network exposure, the traffic, leveraging your threat intelligence systems and machine learning algorithms to tell you if there's something anomalous going on with your applications. And so these are some of the things that we provide to establish trust. So I've given you a quick overview of Azure, and I have just scratched the surface, of course. We're a hybrid cloud, we're productive, we're intelligent, and we're trusted. And we're a great partner for you, as well as companies like Veritas, our joint partner in your transition to the cloud. And so with that, I want to thank you very much. I hope to see next time around all those people that didn't raise their hand, raise their hands and tell me that you're an Azure customer. Thanks.
I'm raising my hand. All right. Thank you, Mark. You know, we're so glad, and Mark, first of all, is super in demand, and we're so glad that he took his time to come here. You know, Microsoft, and I'll just reinforce a couple of points. Microsoft and Veritas understand what it takes to help enterprises deliver reliable performance. It's not just about spinning it up on the website and hoping for the best. It's not just about, you know, a random development team putting a random application up. If companies are going to make this pivot and they're going to remain compliant and it's going to remain reliable, you need companies like ours to deliver that kind of service, that kind of experience, and the kind of history that our software, hardware, and services can provide. All right, so now let's pivot back. We talked a lot about data protection. I'm going to pivot a little bit to storage now, and it gives me an opportunity to bring back an idea that we introduced at the beginning of the presentation. So I hope in the newscast that you caught kind of our data monsters. We have a little bit of a kind of monster collective theme that we've put out here. You know, and I have to explain these monsters because it's not that intuitive. You have to understand. Some monsters started off with good intentions. Scientific advancement, you know, the ability to try and discover new things, and sometimes they get out of control. You know, some monsters learn how to add value into society. If you recall, these monsters generate laughter, which creates energy for us. Some are not as well-intentioned. You remember that this one started off as a mogwai. You remember the gremlins, right? They multiply after midnight, they're super cute, and you pour water on them, and all of a sudden they are evil and take over the world. It reminds me of this one. I got this from Dell EMC. This is their favored logo. They went to the Kim Jong-un School of Sales Training, realized that that sort of dictatorial hardware intimidating image wasn't what they wanted, and they mashed it up with Kim Kardashian, and that's what we got. All right. Like I said, we can be self-deprecating, but Why did I raise that now? 25% of organizations expect their raw storage capacity to grow somewhere between 50 and 200% over the coming couple of years. We saw data growth in our customer base over 10 percentage points in the last 12 months. So while storage growth has kind of been an innocent monster in the past, that's our mogwai, and while storage costs have been dropping, and there hasn't been so much revolution in the data center, the storage growth was kind of a supportable problem simply by buying hardware. But world's changing. In fact, data is increasing in terms of its production, its importance is increasing in your environment, and premise-based storage costs are not dropping anymore. Now, cloud storage costs are improving, which is something that I think Mark highlighted, and something that we're helping you deal with by moving your data to the cloud. But let's be realistic, buying more hardware is not realistic. And besides, branded storage is 60 to 70% more expensive than software-defined storage solutions or cloud-based storage solutions. And that buying model traps you in the 3-year cycle of doom, the 3-year refresh cycle. But this is something the competition loves. They're addicted to selling you hardware. They don't know how to do anything else. They want you to be locked into their solution. They may offer you a random API here and there, but this is not software, this is not open integration, this is not pushing you into the cloud ecosystem. In fact, they're being dragged into the cloud kicking and screaming. We take a smarter approach to storage. We were the original software-defined storage provider dating to the 1980s. Veritas has written the storage that you've acquired through certain of these hardware providers. Our software doesn't force you to buy proprietary hardware. It doesn't hold you to a 3-year refresh cycle. It just works. And not only does it work today, it works like the smartphone we talked earlier. It works tomorrow and the next month and next year through updates. Features and value added into storage so that it goes away from becoming storage and turns to usage. Now, you need these kind of solutions because your environment is changing. You're adopting public and private cloud. Many of our customers are continuing down the OpenStack path, and all of them are moving down containers. They're modernizing their data center infrastructures. So last year, we announced a product in our SDS portfolio called Access. It allowed you to access data no matter where it resides, on-prem or off-prem or in private clouds. It could be installed on any commodity hardware that you chose, which ultimately saved you much of that 40 to 60% that I mentioned earlier. But we heard from many of you that adoption of software only can also be a challenge. And while we will always lead with software and always allow the choice, today I'm pleased to announce a new file-based SDS appliance, Veritas Access Appliance. This offering scales up and out with your growing data needs. It enables long-term retention and integrates seamlessly with NetBackup. It provides embedded data classification. So it is not only a storage technology, it allows you to automatically classify unstructured data, reducing your compliance risks. It will deliver machine learning embedded into the software so you will get better insights into the classified data. And ultimately coming with something that is super important and one that we think will revolutionize your data centers, which is the Veritas Storage Controller. Why is this important? Because we understand you as enterprises have built technologies that you're continuing to leverage and will need to continue to leverage for years to come. We can't simply walk into your environment, as many others do, and say, hey, if you want the promise of what I am offering, rewrite everything, and magically everything will be better. We understand that we have to help bridge and orchestrate the gap between the past and the future. Our storage controller will allow you to manage and orchestrate legacy storage, modernized software-defined storage, and cloud storage in a single policy-driven interface. It'll allow administrators and developers to access storage templates based on performance while managing capacity and managing the brands you choose to buy under the covers. We're bringing simplicity in administration, cost savings, and value to storage in a way that the promise of software-defined storage originally laid out for us. But we're doing this even beyond storage. As you're adopting containers and other workload management platforms, we are developing along with you. Scale-out compute platforms with integrated storage and integrated protection allow you once again to choose the hardware that is best for your workload, saving you money and improving your performance, but also providing you with the persistent storage that you need to move your containers to cloud, with the embedded protection so that your data remains safe and reliable and compliant. Veritas Hyperscale for containers and OpenStack delivers all of this value to you. But as I said, storage has to be more than about resiliency and the ability to get your data back. Modern software-defined storage has to help you get better value faster. Many of you out there are trying to find ways to replace tape, the Iron Mountain that we talked about at the beginning. And the way that many are going about this process is to put their data in object stores. Now I'm going to pause here for a minute because object stores are something that I believe are going to change the very fundamental nature of storage in your data centers, and as they already have in the cloud. Why? Well, first of all, because they have delivered on the promise of cost savings. Technologies like erasure coding, which admittedly are decades old, have found ways to reduce the number of copies of data, but maintain still a very high level of resiliency, frankly, higher than tape could ever deliver to you. But the problem with object stores is that when you put your data in there, they're very similar to tapes in the sense that all you know is what the object ID was and not what the content was. So data goes to die in the object store. So the improvement was that it went to disk, but the lost opportunity has been, how do I better leverage the data that I put on the disk? So today, we're announcing the general availability of the Veritas Cloud Storage Platform. It is a revolutionary object store that provides you infinite scalability, integrated intelligence, with data indexing and classification, data analysis that allows integrated workflows for decision-making, and embedded automated workflow, ultimately giving you ultra-low total cost of ownership with very, very high performance. And I can't emphasize enough, one of the litmus tests that we think that you need to ask of your storage provider is not whether they're storing your data, but whether in storing your data, are they allowing you to use your data? And Veritas has been a leader in this space for many years. 20 years of writing the software for leading storage companies that delivered that value in hardware. But we're breaking free from that. We're breaking free from the refresh cycle, and we're helping you move the heterogeneity of your data center and the history of your data center forward into software-defined and ultimately forward into cloud. Let's move on. So, switching gears a little bit. We've talked a lot about data protection, where we're the industry leader, where we offer the value of not just streaming, but snapshot management, copy data management, visualization, workload migration, the single platform that offers more features than any other provider on the market at the most scale with the best history of reliability. And in software-defined storage, the leading and the longest-standing storage software provider in the market, revolutionizing storage to not just protect your data, but to add value to it, allowing you to use that data more effectively. The third area we're going to talk to you about today is what you do with that data. What's better usage look like? What's the promise that we're heralding is coming in the future? We said earlier that successful companies are investing in machine learning and artificial intelligence. In fact, a recent Cowen & Company research study found that 81% of IT leaders are already investing in some form of AI and ML technologies. But to get the best value from those investments, they have to take advantage of what's the network effect of data. It's not just the volume of data that you have at your enterprise, the volume that's stored in tools like NetBackup, it's your access to data even outside your environment. It's understanding how data is moving in your data ecosystem, whether that's at your enterprise or across your supply chain. So first step if you're going to maximize the value of your AI and ML investments, is visibility into the data that exists in your data ecosystem. You have to capitalize on understanding what data you have, where it exists, where it came from, so its chain of custody, who has access to it today, how many copies of it are there, and whether they're necessary, how much is it costing you, so you can do your own ROI calculations. And not understanding the answers to those questions is why today 52% of enterprise data is what we call dark. It's sitting on disk or in tape without an understanding of what application it came from or who created it or even why it's still there. It's why 33% of it we've demonstrated to be redundant or obsolete or trivial. It's why 41% of your data hasn't even been touched in 3 years or more. So if you're frustrated at rising costs, then think about visibility. If you're concerned about what's going to happen with GDPR right around the corner and the risks that this data bring to you, think about visibility. So it's why this monster can be so scary. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you remember, the one thing that you have to do to make this monster less scary is turn on the light. We learned that as kids. What visibility does is it shines light on the 52% of dark data that you have in your environment. Make these monsters go away. So last year, we launched the Veritas Information Map. It is a data visualization tool that took all the rich metadata coming from the Net Backup catalog and presented it in an interactive format. It allowed not just IT administrators and technologists to understand data, it allowed chief data officers or line of business owners or legal departments to understand what the data estate is at the enterprise and help assess its opportunities and its risks. Now, one of the shortcomings last year, of course, was that it only took Net Backup data, which we knew is a substantial amount of data, based on what you're paying us, thank you very much. But we knew there was much more. And frankly, your data since then has also fragmented. You have data locked inside of file systems and in archives. You have moved data to SaaS providers. You have it in cloud, obviously. You have it in applications, in structured databases, of course, as well as Net Backup, and other Veritas products. So the picture needed to improve, and today it does. So I'm happy to announce today that Information Map will now visualize more than 20 new data sources and give you an even more complete picture of what your data landscape looks like. And I won't read all these data sources. I'll give you a chance to absorb them and take pictures. But this is critical. For us, this is foundational. For you, we believe this is foundational. As you adopt cloud, you have the obligation and the responsibility to take the first step of knowing where your data went, who's touching it, and how it's being used as you move it into the wider data ecosystem. So how do protection, storage, and visibility come together? Breaking down silos in your current data center environment, helping you reduce costs, simplifying management, which is something that we've heard from all of our customers, becoming more efficient with your resources, better equipped to deal with increasing compliance challenges, allow you to finally capitalize on the value of your secondary data. Now keep in mind, on the compliance front, with GDPR coming, we've shown that 37% of IT delivery managers feel like data compliance for things like GDPR is somehow going to be taken care of where the data exists. Once again, we go back to this idea that the very nature of putting data in the cloud is going to solve a regulatory problem. But as we've seen in the fine print, that is highly unlikely. Your cloud provider is not going to respond to a subject access request and prove beyond a doubt that request for deletion occurred. In fact, Gartner predicts by the end of 2018, more than 50% of companies affected by GDPR will not be in compliance. 50%. They will not be in compliance with the core ideas of not just GDPR, but so many other data regulations that are being created. For example, an individual's right to be forgotten. This means that, in this case, any EU citizen can submit a subject access request, ask for demonstrated proof of how their data is being stored, and have it be deleted. Your providers are not prepared to work with you and share the obligation of data management in this way? What would happen if individuals started suing companies based on this new right? That would kind of be a new data monster that would be created in the world. But unlike Shrek, these trolls don't have layers of emotions, they don't have hearts of gold, and they don't have gruff exteriors. They look more like this. Okay? This is a real example. We're going to call him Trevor. He's already making subject access requests of companies and suing them for proof of how his data is being managed. People like Trevor are going to cost you a lot more money than Shrek ever could, because in Trevor's case, the penalty for you is 4% of your gross annual revenue, or 20 million euros, whichever is greater. So if that's not inspiration to go deal with data management problems, I'm not sure what is. So the first step for you, working with Veritas, is complete denial. No. It starts with visibility. It's understanding, first and foremost, how GDPR applies to your organization. Secondly, discovering and mapping your data wherever it exists. Third, using that information as an enabler to build a subject access request response process. And not just stopping there, but then proving then and reporting on the fact that you complied with those requests. Because your obligation is not just to the individual, it's to the regulator as well. Now, I've set the stage a little bit, and that sounds daunting, but these are also things that Veritas is building products to go deliver on. And for this, I'd like to welcome on the stage Alex Brown. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for coming out here. All right, so I just set up a kind of an intimidating, potentially very expensive sort of task list for our enterprise customers, obviously associated with GDPR. So let's start a little bit of how can we help them get started dealing with these problems?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we can do is direct you towards the Veritas GDPR website, where we can provide you with, first of all, a free risk analyzer, which we're actually releasing this week. It's a free online tool. You can download your files to the tool. It will analyze it live in front of you and give you an idea of the kind of classification tags that can be applied to the data within.
Is this another free downloadable tool?
Another free downloadable tool.
How are we going to make money?
Later.
Oh, okay.
Secondarily, we can also have you check out best practices for governing unstructured data, so processing, controlling data appropriately. And also, we can start engaging with you with our professional services, providing a thorough GDPR assessment and guiding you towards a compliance roadmap, getting you to compliance.
Okay, so let's say we download this tool, we start to get an understanding of the data that we think applies to us.
Yep.
What do we do next?
So with the Risk and Compliance Manager up and running, we can actually now start sending out a series of privacy impact assessments, and that really is a way of performing application and service discovery. We're now discovering what we have running internally. And we can actually use that tool to now start gaining an understanding of where those services and applications are. And the nice thing about this is we can now start applying some cool classification techniques to now dig into a greater level of depth within those services and applications. We can start using machine learning to learn about the types of personal data that are contained within. And that's important because most organizations will have a unique footprint when it comes to personal data. It'll be very different to the next organization. And so learning about what's relevant to you as an organization is an important first step for any kind of classification run. And then the tool can provide you with a live kind of analysis and visibility into those tags as they're being applied to the data. And so if we look at the dashboard in more detail, we can see that, first of all, you can see what is primarily the gold standard for any kind of compliance effort is understanding where am I holding risk. Can I break this down into business unit and then understand my gaps? So this part of the dashboard will give you that exact view. It'll give you a holistic view of your organization and where those gaps exist. This is my risk. Secondarily, I can see where the personal data are located within the applications and services that we've now discovered. And we can also see where the retention policies are being applied. And then fourth, we can see the data flow. And perhaps for the first time, you're now seeing an indication of where that data is flowing both within your organization logistically, but also geographically.
You must have taken part in the Veritas design program. It's fantastic. Okay, great. So now, We've assessed all of this with machine learning. We've taken a lot of labor out of the process,
Yep.
which is great, through software. How do we close this out?
Yeah, so in this case, we have some data flow warnings. We know we're moving data perhaps inappropriately between some borders where we don't have the appropriate controls in place. And so we can use the tool to actually remediate this directly. We can assign, using the workflow manager, a task to perhaps the legal or compliance team in this case, and then we can have that person remediate and then tell the tool that's fixed. And so we can use that workflow to remediate the action depending on the alert. And the nice thing is we can now understand over time how to prioritize those alerts based on the risk it gives me or you as an organization.
And so we said earlier that when we've responded to the subject access request, we're not quite done. What do we have to do to ultimately make sure that we're safe from a legal perspective?
Yeah, so that's actually an extension to where we were. But now we've discovered where personal data is, we can use some interesting techniques such as entity name extraction to figure out who does that personal data belong to. And that's really the million-dollar question. I have some risky data, but without an owner, I don't understand how to really remediate a subject access request. And so we've made it easy. In this case, you can see a dashboard of our incoming subject access requests. And we can pick on this case Amy Kim. Amy Kim is our incoming request. So we authenticate her, make sure she is a real person. And then we provide, via the classification tags, now an automatically generated keyword search. We understand the type of data we perhaps hold on her before we've even run a search.
Okay, so we've now responded and realized that we have a legitimate subject access request. What do we do?
So again, we can use the workflow engine to now push that through the search technique. I can now remediate that search request without directly interacting with IT. And so whether Amy is requesting just simply visibility into her data, or whether she's requesting, in the case of before, a right to be forgotten, we can remediate everything within the tool.
And then we have to report on it.
We do. And again, GDPR has some very specific reporting capabilities. It asks you to generate what are called Article 30 documents. So we have a lot of the information we need to generate those documents, particularly in the privacy impact assessment stage. And so we can ask the tool in the reporting module to say, give me that text that I can insert directly into my legal Article 30 documentation. So nice and easy.
Super, Alex. Thank you very much. So now we've talked a little bit about how protection and storage now equate to risk reduction in the environment. Yep. I'd like to invite out Josh Stagerberg to talk a little bit about how data is also an opportunity in our environment as well. So come on out, Josh. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. That's a methodical walk you got going there. All right. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Mike. So, Mike, let's say you're a salesman.
All right, hold on. We agreed at the beginning, Chinese accents for machine learning, British accents for risk reduction, California accents for products we're going to talk about but haven't built yet but might in the future.
All right.
All right, let's be clear on that.
Go. Okay. American accent. So, Mike, let's say you're a sales manager who needs to share data with other groups in the company. In the past, maybe you've used SharePoint to distribute that data, but it takes a lot of time and effort, and you may not even be able to handle things like keeping all that data up to date or managing second-generation copies. With Veritas, you can use Information Map to visualize all the sources up here on the screen in a single, unified, managed, and tagged view. Jyoti is going to tell you more about that in the next keynote session about Veritas Information Map and Connection Center. But here, today, we're going to talk about the new connector we're calling Data Marketplace, which uses machine learning to find and build collections of potentially valuable data that you can share with your coworkers. When your coworkers use and interact with those data collections, you get a report of how they're using the data. You get a report of what they're adding to the original data. And building valuable data collections and sharing them internally is really valuable. But let's push that way further. This is what that might look like. What if you could use these same tools to build data collections and identify and monetize high-value data and minimize low-value data? Let's say your CIO is under pressure from your CFO to change data from a balance sheet liability to an asset. It's very expensive to retain data, as we all know. So your CIO really needs to determine the proper balance between selling and minimizing that data. With Veritas, that CIO has access to a dashboard that we call the monetization dashboard. Lets him quickly see what classifications are in demand in his industry. Lets him see what data he has that meets those classifications. Helps him understand what the potential value of that data, should he choose to monetize it, and how much that data costs, all at his fingertips. He can then promote these internal collections to the data marketplace. And after he does that, a business intelligence analyst can go out and find the data collections on the data marketplace, make queries of those collections, explore and visualize samples of that data, even understand and view conclusions that other people have made based on that data, so that they can be sure when they buy that data that they're getting the right data for their needs. Even better, the CIO who created these collections gets insight into the detailed information about how that data is being used, what data is being added to it. And what that means is that CIO can gain insights to that data far beyond what he had at his disposal originally.
So we've talked a lot in the past and today about that data is your most important asset. Of course, we've dealt a lot with the risk side, but those same tools allow you to also monetize that data, capitalize in it, especially as we start to see the development of these data ecosystems.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, guys. Thank you for hanging with us here. I'm going to recap a little. While this sounds fanciful, there are companies that are already in this data marketplace space today. The most valuable companies in the world are trading on the data they've collected on their users. This is real. The challenge is for many enterprises, this is not real. They have the assets, they have the secondary data amassed, stored, they're paying for, but are struggling to get the value from it. Let's talk about why Veritas. As we said, Veritas has been the leader in data protection for years. You will have companies come to talk to you about the widget or the feature or a little Pinocchio-like thing that they're bringing to you of why they're better than the next guy that's going to show up. But the reality is that Veritas provides you with the features and the experience necessary to manage your data center today, your cloud providers like Microsoft tomorrow, and the new workloads that you're investing in. We allow you to choose the technique that best applies to that workload, and we simplify that experience both in the licensing and the pricing process. We are the #1 data protection platform in the industry, and we will remain so for years to come. We've also recognized that in order to make that work for you, you have to integrate that with storage. And as storage evolves to software-defined storage, we're investing in the technology to help you extract value from the software that protects that data, whether that is in automated classification engines or the ability to move data in a seamless, fast, and efficient way to cloud. And ultimately speaking, having protected, stored, and managed that data, we're giving you the visibility, the connectors, the decision-making tools, and the interfaces to go where you really wanted to go, which was to make your secondary data the most valuable asset at your enterprise. Let's take this journey together. I want to thank you for coming again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions. Thank you very much.